You guys want to talk about Civil War? Let's talk about Civil War.
Uh-oh.
Louisiana advances bill classifying abortion as homicide. Republican representative behind the bill says the state cannot wait on the Supreme Court. The move on Wednesday came 2 days after the leaked draft about Roe v. Wade. Louisiana State Rep. Danny McCormick, a Republican, introduced the Abolition of Abortion Act in March. The legislation approved in a 7-2 committee vote now moves to the state's full House. The Louisiana bill is one of a raft of proposals by lawmakers in conservative states. Such restrictions could go further than the so-called trigger laws, bans, and other regulations that will take effect in some 26 states should Roe be overturned. So let's talk about what this means. If abortion is homicide, that means a lot in terms of what happens to abortion providers.
Can I ask you something? Is there a difference between the legal classification of homicide and the legal classification of murder? If you're to write a law that says X is homicide, does that mean it's open to being considered murder, but not necessarily considered murder in every case?
Or is it a different degree?
Homicide means a human killed a human.
Yeah, exactly. But so homicide could be involuntary manslaughter. It could be first degree murder, second degree murder. I'm curious if this is specified in any way in the legislation.
Did they mention the degree?
They're just calling it. They're saying it's homicide, which means they're granting life rights to the fetus.
Yeah.
Which means what? Are they part of the census? I asked this before the show. It's a silly question, but like, are they going to classify these now humans as part of the census when they're taking a census? Come on. I mean, they're not human. They're not people yet.
Well, they're not giraffes, man.
They're not people, though. They're
they?
developing fetus humans. They're not people until they get a birth certificate legally.
No, that's the logic they used to keep slaves in.
Well, that's the law. That's the law right now. If you want to change the law and say that they're people and give them a birth certificate on conception.
No. The law isn't that you gain personhood with a birth certificate. There's no law that says
there's
that.
there's no person until there's a personality.
No, that's not true.
Or until it's legally called
Yeah,
a
no
person. I mean, what is a
not
person?
person.
Let's look up what a person is.
Yeah, look. Actually, that's a good idea. Let's
great
define.
Let's get semantic.
I mean, it's a philosophical distinction, right? But I would actually make the argument that the distinction between, so I guess you can make an argument that there are persons who aren't human, right? But every human is a person. You can't not grant rights to a living human being.
Well,
A person is the body of a human being.
That's been the worst civil rights violations in our country's history, is when we've tried to define personhood and who is or who is not worthy enough to be a person.
So this is where I think the abortion issue is very much our second Civil War catalyst. They had actually argued in pre-Civil War that slaves didn't have personhood, that they didn't have the same rights. The Constitution didn't apply to them. They had no personhood. You cannot allow someone to arbitrarily decide when a human being is a person.
Or women weren't even granted the same rights just a couple decades before Roe was passed.
Yeah.